Hey guys, Lucas here, and today I'm at the Abbey Road Institute explaining my track going in. I'm gonna start off with the intro and the theme and how I came up with it. And after that we will discuss the drop and the A-B arrangement I used in the drop. So first we're gonna take a listen to the track and then we will proceed from the beginning. First I'm gonna explain how I created the intro and the theme. For this track I wanted to start off with the old school hip-hop breakbeat kind of sample. So I went online searching for old school breakbeat samples. I will first show you the original sample that I work with and then show you how I created my own loop out of that. So for the breakbeat sample, so this is the sample I found online. So as you heard, probably I used the first part of the sample containing this. And in Fruity Loops we have this time stretch function, and if I stretch this sample, it would sound like something like this. If I stretch it a little bit more. And if I loop this, it will sound like this. And that's how I came up with this loop. For me it really has this old school drum feeling, and I think it's really cool for the track. So this is how I started off. Next off, I had this drum kind of elements in the mid and the low frequencies a little bit, but I missed some effects and sounds in the high frequencies. So I went searching for these old school breakbeat kind of scream samples and vox samples. I will give you some examples of the sounds you could use for that, and then I will show you the sounds that I used. So as you hear, I used 3 of the samples down here, and if I play the sequence you will see how it will sound. These are the breakbeat shouts that I used. And if I play this together with the breakbeat, you will get this effect. So as you can hear, this adds more groove to the loop, and it also fills up the more higher frequencies in the spectrum. So next up, I had elements in the mid and in the high spectrum, and I wanted some low Reese bass. Just in some old kind of hip hop beats, you also have this low Reese bass. So I came up with this sound. I think I used Serum for it. Oh no, this one is Spire. So I will first play the sound and then show you the whole sequence together with the other elements. I'm going to the mixer chain of this one, and as you can see, not that much is happening actually. I did some low cutting and some boost on the second octave of the root key of the track, and I also did some filter here. I cut some of the high frequencies because I didn't want them to interfere with the other high frequencies in this part of the track. Furthermore, there's some limiting going on, and that's it actually. So I will play the Reese bass together with the breakbeat and the break shouts to see how this all sounds together. So we have now 3 elements playing here in the theme and intro, but I still had the feeling that I needed filled up with some other things. So I have this vocal loop or vocal FX that I use to really low volume, but it gives some edge and like ambient feeling to the background. So first I will play this vocal layer solo, and then I will show you together with all the other elements again. It's just a simple loop, but it really fills things up, as you can hear when I play it together now. So next on is this old school brassy stab synth. I sampled this actually from a Vengeance pack, from a Vengeance VH2 pack, and this one will sound like this. I use this actually a lot in my tracks because I really like to combine the organic elements with the electronic elements, and for a stab synth on the first kick, in my opinion, it was a really cool sound, so I use this in this project as well. So now we have 5 elements playing here in the intro theme. One is the breakbeat shouts, the breakbeat, the vocal effects, the Reese bass, and the step synth. So drum wise and FX wise, for me this was done, but I really needed a vocal to bring it to the next level because this was cool on its own, but it didn't have the extra edge in my opinion. So I went buying some vocals and I came up with this vocal. I will show you the original vocal sample first and how I turned it in my vocal actually. So this is the original vocal I used.
We going in like there's nothing to lose, nothing to prove. It's all about positive mental attitude.
And if I double click on the sample, you have this time stretch function here. And if I click auto detect, I can fill in the BPM. So here in the title it says already 96, but here also the tempo is viewed by Fruity itself. So I can either choose this or type the BPM by myself. So let's say 96. So
we going in like there's nothing to lose, nothing to prove. It's all about positive mental attitude.
So as you hear, the vocal got speed up way faster. The original tempo is 96, but I used it on 128. And I really want to give this idea also to other producers that you don't need to find vocals per se that's exactly in the BPM of the track that you're working it. It's actually, I think it's actually really cool to find vocal or samples from other styles that are maybe in other BPM ranges, but if you speed things up or slow things down, you can get really cool effects in my opinion. So I will show you how I created my sequence from this vocal.
We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in like there's nothing to lose. Nothing. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in like there's nothing to lose. Nothing to prove. It's all about. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in like there's no. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in like there's nothing to lose. Nothing to prove. It's all about.
So this is how I came up with this. As you can hear, the vocal is a little bit processed here, and it also plays 1 octave higher than the original samples that I showed you before. So all the elements of the intro together with the vocal will sound like this.
We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in like there's nothing to lose. Nothing to prove. It's all about. We going in like there's nothing to lose. 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 Nothing to prove. It's all about. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in like there's nothing to lose. Nothing to prove. It's all about. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing to lose. We going in. We going in like there's nothing
Okay, so before we go to the drop, I will just check this last piece of the build with you. So for the vocal, as you heard, there is some processing on the vocal. It's mostly reverb to give it like extra space and room in the breakdown, and it won't clash with other elements. So I could use a big reverb on the vocal here. And for the build, there's actually not that much happening. The breakbeat will play on here, and I have some build snares that are building during the build up here, and the vocal will loop and pitch up eventually. So that's the thing for the build up. It's not that big or special in my opinion. So next on, when I had this element, I went to the drop, and that's also always how I work. I always have the theme and the intro first before I have a drop. I just cannot start off with a drop because it doesn't inspire me somehow. For the drop, this is like a trick that I do. Let's listen to the drop first, and then I explain what I did. So the drop here consists, how I see it, it really consists out of an A and a B section. So kind of the question and the answer. The A section is this. So that's A in my opinion, and this is B. This is a fig that I actually did a lot in the last tracks that I made, and I think it's a cool thing because you get a contrast in the drop and you keep things interesting. So let's dive into the A section first. So the A section, as I showed you, contains out of 3 elements actually. Synth-wise, you have this scream synth. There's a preset that I patched in Serum. It consists out of 2 oscillators and a subsection. And there's some processing going on. I use some fab filter to cut out a little bit of the low frequencies and I boost a little bit of the high, and I also dipped a little bit with sweep EQ some of the frequencies that were irritating to the ear. Afterwards, I used some OTT. This is like a free multi-band compressor. It's really good, and I can recommend a lot of producers to use it. It's easygoing, and it really gives this extra edge to the high end, in my opinion. After that, I use it Arts Acoustic for the reverb. It's not that big. It's just like a medium smooth reverb. And then I did some limiting at the end and some side chaining with the kickstart plugin of Nicky Romero. Other element in the A section of the drop is the sub bass. I will show you the bass solo so you can hear it. And actually on this bass is also from Serum, but there's a lot of processing going on the chain here. I will first play the sound with the chain, and then I will turn the chain off so you can hear the difference in the tweaking that I did. So this is the bass without my mixer chain. So as you can hear, it contains a lot of high and mid frequencies. It's not low focused in my opinion. So this is with my mixer chain. So let's see what I did here. So first off, I did some equalizing. I cut a little bit of the low frequencies here, and I cut a little bit of the high frequencies. Then I did some OTT, multiband compression. And then is this next plugin, is the wow filter. I use this in vowel mode. So how do you do that? You click this function here, then it goes in vowel mode, and then you have here some filter options, and then I use the band reject. A lot of producers then after this automate this button to really get the vowel going. So let's say from A to B, of A to O, those kind of effects. But I really like to keep the automation on one position without automating anything for the vowel. So the effect this creates will sound like this. So without wow filter, with the wow filter. So it gives this tubey kind of effect to it. Then there's another EQ. I cut some of the high frequencies, dipped a little bit in the mid, and boosted a little bit the lows. Then we have some reverb, but I think I turned this off during the mix eventually. To finish off, there is some limiting again and some side chaining going on. So altogether it will sound like this. So the next element in the A section of the drop is the plug synth. This synth is also made in Serum and only contains one oscillator. And let's go to the mixer chain and see what's happening here. I will first play the solo again. So the whole thing that gives this effect to the synth is that it's pitching down an octave during the drop. So I automated the pitch function. So here we have the plus 12 and the minus 12 in Serum, and here I just put the range to 12 as well, and then automated this pitch function and pitched it down during the drop. I will play you the sound dry so you can hear what my mixer chain does to the sound. So this is the synth without any processing. Sounds really bad to me. And here's the processing that I did on the synth. So first I did some EQ. I cut out the low frequencies. Next on is the OTT again, just with some multiband upwards compressing. The thing that I do when I use OTT, it's always on 100 when you open it. So that's like full on and it's too much. So I just turn this back to 0 and then start pushing up while I'm playing the sound. So and then I just play the sound and I push it up till I find the moment that's over compressed in my opinion. Then I turn it out a little bit. So I just have this little extra edge from the OTT, but not too much. Next on is FabFilter Saturn. It's a really good saturation plugin and I use it quite often. Here I mostly use the gentle saturation plugin. And as I can see, I just give it a little bit of drive. I boost it a little bit on the mids, the treble, and that's it actually. And there comes the equalizer again. And And this equalizer, actually, there's a lot of sweep EQ going on here. There were some like irritating frequencies that I dipped out here, and I cut it some low frequencies again, because compression will add frequencies all over the place. So without EQ it would sound like this, and with the EQ it sounds like this. Next on is some reverb, limiting, and then a sidechain again. So that's for the A piece of the drop, and now we go to the bass B section of the drop. The B section was this. So let's dive in the synths here in the B section. For the B section, there are 4 layers playing, 2 Nexus. This is like the deep saw in Nexus. This bass gives like the not the lowest bass, but the more the mid-range bass, and it sounds like this. So as you can hear, it doesn't have that much low frequencies and not that much high frequencies, but it's more focused on the low mid frequencies. The next bass that I use is the pure sine wave, really for the lowest frequencies, and sounds like this. So if we go look at the processing in the mixer chain, you'll see that on the low mid bass, I low cut it till, let's say, 98 Hertz, to the second octave of G, because I didn't want this low mid bass to interfere with my lowest bass. So cut these frequencies here. Then I have the kickstart plugin for the sidechaining. Next on is the pure sine wave. This one has some high cut because I didn't want the high frequencies, and I boosted a little bit in the lower frequencies here. After that, I did some limiting and some sidechaining again. So those are the sub frequencies playing in the B section. Now we will go to the main lead of the B section and see what kind of processing I use there and how the sound is built up. So for the B section, this contains the main sound, and it's out of 2 oscillators, a B oscillator and an A oscillator, and a subsection that goes directly out. And this means the sub doesn't go to the FX chain that's built in the synth. So if we go to the mixer preset here, see what I use, I would just turn all my mixer presets off and just listen to sound like this, and then I will show my mixer preset. So this is the sound without any FX. And this is the sound with the FX. So what do we do here? From first, there is some Fab Filter Pro Q2 equalizer. I just cut some of the low frequencies. Then I did some OTT, put some OTT on it again. Just like I said, it's a really good plugin, and I really recommend this one. Next one is the wow filter. Here again, I did the same principle that I do a lot with wow. I just put it in wow mode and then put it on band reject, and then put it on one position and just keep it like that all track long. So Fab Filter OTT wow. Next on, there is some equalizing again and some sweep equalizing, because there were some irritating frequencies and I wanted to manage to take them out. And to finish off, there is some reverb again, Arts Acoustic, and some limiting by L2. So these are like the main elements and the basis of the B section, and play it all together. But there's like more playing on. So there are some hi-hats here and some bongo drums and some other small samples that just give this extra groove to the B section. I will turn them off first so you can hear only the kick, the claps, and the synths and the basses, and then I will put all these small perks and other affixes to the drop. So without, it would sound like this. So these are like the bongo drums added. These are some vocal synths added, kind of. These are some hi-hats here added. And these are some vocal synths and hi-hats as well here. So altogether it will sound like this. So that will be the A section and the B section of the drop. So we had the synths and the subs and the basses. What else is happening? This is my kick drum of the drop. It's a quite punchy kick drum, but I don't use it that long as original. I always use the kick drum as just a quarter of this bar because my bass comes from the sub section and not from the kick, so the kick only needs to have the body and the punch. As for the claps, there are like 3 claps here layered. One is this one. This is the second one. And this is the last one, and this is only for the click and the tail actually. I mean the attack. So these are the claps sounding together. First clap. Second clap. So we had the A and the B section, and actually how the drop is built up is the A and B section just constantly varying, and after 8 bars, some hi-hats and crashes will be added to the drop. So this is what I'm talking about. So if we listen to the progression of the drop, you'll see that this will just add this extra edge to the drop and give it some extra groove during the drop. So guys, that was going in my track. If you have any other questions, make sure to put them in the comment section below. And yeah, that's it.